Hi guys, Ramsey here. Today we are going to do another conglomerate video. I did one of these on the corporation of Estee Lauder and all the brands that were underneath that umbrella. And today I'm going to do one on the can't even call them a house, but we'll call it a mega corporation of L'Oreal. They own all of these brands that I'm going to show. Some of them I already did, house family portraits on, like YSL, for example. Some of these are new fragrances in my collection that you guys have not seen before, but I'm going to show it all in one video because if someone else has not watched that video and they're interested in the brands that L'Oreal owns, they can watch this one video and see it all in one spot. That being said, if I talk in depth about all these, this will be a 3-hour video, and I know I've said many times before that I don't care what the YouTube algorithms think, that this channel is going to be run the way that I want, and it's going to be for, fragrance connoisseurs. All of these fragrances in my collection were purchased with my own money. None of these were given to me by brands for reviews. I am not an infomercial. These are all my opinions. Now, before we get started, I want to show you my scent of the day. This is Les Indemodables Oriental Velours. Now, this is a very interesting fragrance. If you like fragrances like Chiffre Palatine, which is one of my favorite Chiffre fragrances built by the master of incense, Bertrand Duchaufour. Chiffre Palatine, check out Oriental Velours. This house in general, I was having a conversation with a up-and-coming perfumer, we'll say. Some of you in the comments probably know him. And he said that he thinks Les Indemodables uses better ingredients than Roger. And you know what? I can't argue with him because I think that's a great shout. These ingredients do smell top-notch, but they don't charge Roger prices. So I think you get a great value for money with this house. I own 3 of these little 10 ml decants, and I'm definitely looking to sample more from the house. But this is the first time I've given this a full wear, and I am thoroughly impressed. If money was no object, I would buy a bottle of this right now. Okay, next, we're going to begin with the House of Azzaro. Now, Azzaro, one thing I should say about these fragrances, by the way, many of these I purchased pre-L'Oreal buying the house. So a lot of these are vintage fragrances. And then maybe L'Oreal scooped in and purchased the House of Azzaro, and now they're doing some fragrances, which I will show you one of, that go in a completely different direction. So keep in mind, these are not all created under the direction of L'Oreal. L'Oreal bought a lot of these brands, and with them came all of their classic fragrances. So the first one is Azzaro Pour Homme. This is a vintage sticker bottle, as they call it. So it's not the oldest, but it's maybe the first reformulation. I'm not 100% sure, but this is one of my favorite fougere fragrances of all time. Oh, why don't they make fragrances like this anymore? This was created by Gerard Anthony, who created this fragrance in 1978, I believe. Don't hold me to it, but he also created Iquitos. And he created Balenciaga Pour Homme and Cristobal Pour Homme. And Homme de Grace from Parfums Grace. That is a fragrance I showed off on one of my haul videos. So he created 4 or 5 masculine fragrances in the late 70s to mid 90s that I absolutely love. Even though the guy doesn't have a lot of offerings, he is a legend just from this alone. So check this out. Don't go spend $500-600 on Viking when you can get this for 20 or 30 bucks if you're kind of a noob in the community and you want to get your nose on what real masculine fragrances were. Azzaro Pour Homme. Okay, next is a cheapie, and if I ever make a cheapie list, it will be on there. Someone, I forgot who, told me they didn't like this fragrance. They thought it was not very well done. I respectfully disagree. This is Azzaro Pour Homme Intense. They basically took Azzaro Pour Homme from 1978. This came out in 2015. It was done by Olivier Pechot. And they modernized it up, you could say, a bit. They added a liquor note. They added a note of brandy, which I really like. But it retains that fougere DNA. And, you know, it's a cheapie. It's a $20 fragrance, $30 fragrance it's a 100 ml bottle. Great value for whatever it is. But if you like vintage masculines and you're not happy with the current formulation of Azzaro Pour Homme, which you're probably not, then check this fragrance out. Good cheapie. I'll do a cheapie list one day. Another cheapie from the House of Azzaro, which I think deserves a little bit more talk. It was done by the venerable Annick Menardo, and this is Azzaro Visit. I don't know if you can see that. It's got fingerprints all over it. I need Eugene's towel to wipe all this stuff off. Azzaro Visit. And this fragrance is compared to a fragrance that is now very hard to find, and that's Gucci Rush. And the reason I never really tried to go hunt down a bottle of vintage Gucci Rush is I have this, and I trust Annick Menardo, and I don't know. It says Azzaro manufactured for CFG. I don't know if this is a modern version. I have no clue about the versions of this, but I paid like 20 bucks, 25 bucks for 100 ml. 100 ml, yep. And you know, another Annick Menardo home run. We mentioned Jaipur Pour Homme. We mentioned Body Koros, which I'll show later on when YSL comes up. And this is another one, Azzaro Visit. The sandalwood note in this is actually quite good for a cheapie. Okay, next onto a modern formula that I purchased based on the hype. I've worn it. I've given it one full wear. I probably won't wear it again just because it's not my thing. It's a good fragrance for a kid in high school. You know, honestly, that's what this is for. This is for a kid in high school. It's Azzaro Wanted by Night. This does have that modern bubblegum accord. It says there's cinnamon and tobacco. This was done by Michael Girard and Quinton Biche. And there's just this fruity bubblegum thing. It's sweet. It's got benzoin, a lot of ISOE super or ambroxan or both. I don't know. But the one thing that kept my attention early on is the cumin note. There is a note of cumin in this, and if your nose is attuned, you will pick it up. So for the first 5 or 10, 15 minutes, you will get this cumin note. It then starts to fade as it dries, but I'm a little shocked they put this into a, you know, you could call it a very likable mainstream designer release. That cumin note might put some people off, but even with that, it's not very interesting. And next is the hidden gem of the Azzaro house. This is one of my favorite rose fragrances, created by Maurice Morin in 1989, and this is Acteur, Azzaro Acteur. And this is a very interesting rose incarnation. There's spices, there's leather in the base, there's oak moss. Oh, it's too bad they don't make fragrances like this anymore. It's a masculine rose. I showed off Aramis 900 back on the Estee Lauder video. If you liked Aramis 900 or you like the sound of it, you like the sound of Lyric Man by Amouage, you know, check this out. Different kind of masculine rose, but very well done. Okay, next on to the House of Armani. That's the next house that L'Oreal owns, and I only own one of their fragrances because I'm not an Armani guy. I'm kind of more of a Trussardi, you know, slash, what other Italian houses are out there. Anyways, I'm not a big Armani guy, long story short. But I do like this fragrance because it's the most realistic incense fragrance out there, and that is from the Armani Privé line, Bois d'Encens. Or I should say, Bois d'Encens. I was told that I'm supposed to blow right through that apostrophe there. Bois d'Encens. I'm working on that. But very good incense. if you want a realistic incense, even though it doesn't last very long, I mean, this is dead on banger for burnt incense. And it is expensive though, because it's in the Privé line. It's one of the earlier releases from 2004. But here it is, bon encens. Oh, Versace, that's what I was thinking. I'm much more of a Versace or Trussardi guy, not so much Armani. Okay, next is the only fragrance I have from the house of Cacharel, who, again, L'Oreal owns all these, so I don't know why I keep saying it like I have some sort of a tick. L'Oreal owns all of the brands I'm showing, but Cacharel is the next brand, and this is Cacharel pour l'Homme. I mentioned I didn't like this fragrance in my fragrances I own but do not like list, and I'm guessing it's because this is a modern formulation. Could they put that type any smaller? How am I supposed to read that? Anyways, yeah, it's this nutmeggy, spicy thing. It just, I would love to see if a vintage is done better, I would be very interested to smell the vintage and compare it to the modern formulation, but this is one I could sell and never miss it, but it's not very expensive. It's 30, 20 bucks, whatever it is. Usually I like these old school fragrances. This came out in 1981, which is one of my favorite years in perfumery, but this is not one of my favorite fragrances. Okay, next we are going to move on to the house of Roger&Gallet, another cheapy house. Roger&Gallet is not very well known. They're under the L'Oreal brand, obviously, but they have two fresh tobacco fragrances that I really like. Number one is Open by the house of Roger&Gallet, and you can see they have this very interesting design bottle. This came out a long time ago, actually. This came out in 1985, so this has been around for 36 years. Good year, by the way. And I don't know formulations. All I know is that this is a very interesting fresh tobacco with lavender and spices like thyme and sage. There's this vetiver and patchouli note that, anchor the base. If you like fragrances like Versace's Dreamer, for example, they don't necessarily smell alike, but you know how it has that fresh tobacco, not a dark, heavy tobacco, but a fresh type tobacco. Check out Open. And then Open had a big brother, a flanker hit, called Open Black. And this one came out very recently, actually. 2013 this came out. And what can I say about this? This is very similar, a little bit darker. I'm actually shocked they put this out in 2013, because this does feel like it came out in 1985. Feels like, a man in plaid knickers who was about to go golf or go bowling would wear this. This feels very similar, but they put this out in 2013, which I have to applaud them for. Yeah, I don't know, I'm torn. I think I like this one a little bit better. Maybe I would like a vintage version of this, since this is not a vintage. But they're both pretty much fresh tobacco fragrances. This one I feel is a little bit darker, and I like my fragrances like that. Okay, next is the house of Guy Laroche. And I only have one fragrance from them, and you know what it is if you know the house. It's Drakkar Noir. And L'Oreal owns this house, obviously, or this would not be in the video. And this is one of the best fougere fragrances of all time, up there with Azzaro pour Homme. I would put these two right next to each other as far as all-time classic fragrances. I have a vintage Cosmere version, as you can see right there. So I've never smelled the new stuff because I've always had this. I got a good deal off of this. I got this from an estate sale. And it's pretty much full, and the bottle, being black colored with light not being able to get into, these type of fragrances tend to last longer, whereas when the light can get in, it can start to break the fragrance down. So I like bottles, even though you can't see the juice without really holding it up to the light. I like bottles like this because it protects the juice. Okay, next is the house of Thierry Mugler. And Mugler is, now they're not called Thierry Mugler anymore. You will notice all of my bottles say Thierry Mugler on the bottle or on the bottom. They do not just say Mugler. When L'Oreal bought the house of Thierry Mugler, they changed it to Mugler. So if you own a bottle and it only says Mugler, you have a reformulated L'Oreal bottle. And that is a big deal with this house because L'Oreal butchered this house. I should probably just take a couple minutes here and mention that in my Estee Lauder video that I did, I said that I thought Estee Lauder did a fantastic job of allowing brands to keep their autonomy, keep doing what they do. You know, they have brands like Frederic Malle that put out amazing fragrances, whereas L'Oreal, on the other hand, I personally feel that they did not do as good of a job, that they're either money hungry and they cut corners on reformulations because they want to save money, or B, they come in and act like they know exactly what they're doing. They kick the people out who know, and they end up with crap like what happened with Mugler. What they've done to A Men is an absolute crime. So this, you can see it says Thierry Mugler right there. This is an older formulation of A Men. This is my backup bottle. My bottle that I've been using is about half full. It's a 50 ml. But if you take a look at the bottom, you will notice that it does not actually say A Men. It says Angel Men. Can you see that? This is a much older bottle right here. It says Angel Men, and also Thierry Mugler. And that's a big deal because reformulation is a big problem with L'Oreal. So this is one of the most popular gourmand fragrances for men. It came out in 1996. Jacques Huclier does all the men A Men line, from my understanding. Olivier Cresp created Angel Women, but Jacques Huclier did the men's fragrances. And did he do a bang-up job of this? This fragrance has every note. It's so good, even though it's synthetic. It has coffee, caramel, honey, milk, fruity notes, lavender, mint. It has coffee in the base, patchouli, an amazing patchouli note in this. There's benzoin, there's the warmth of benzoin, amber. There's an awesome sandalwood note. It's so complex. There's greenness. There's floral notes. I mean, just whatever you can imagine is thrown into this fragrance, and somehow it works. And the vintage is just, you just spray it on and just go, oh, it's so good. It's a shame what they've done to this fragrance. But that's A Men. And then we've got Pure Havane, which is one of my favorite sweet tobacco fragrances. Again, as you can see, Thierry Mugler. I actually bought this fragrance from Fragrance Net or Fragrance X or wherever I bought it from. And I made sure that I wanted the Thierry Mugler version. I verified it. They said, yes, it's what the picture shows. If it's not, send it back. I got it. Guess what? It was Mugler. I sent it right back. And then I went and hunted one of these down because that's how important it is to get the correct formula when you're dealing with these L'Oreal reformulations. One of the best sweet honeyed tobacco fragrances. My wife loves this fragrance. She doesn't love very many fragrances, actually. No matter, I mean, she'll go, they're okay, and they're, or she'll go, whoa, what is that? But she loves this fragrance. It does have a sweetness. There's one that I have similar to this that I hate. I didn't include it in my fragrances I hate video, but I could have. It's called 1821 Sweet Tobacco. That is way too sweet. This is done better. Jacques Huclier really walked the line here between sweet, tobacco, cacao, vanilla, and that patchouli is the star. So, A Men Pure Havane, and then you have Pure Malt, which is one of the best boozy fragrances, and it does smell like malt. There's a note of peat moss in this, which I think really rounds it out perfectly. There's also a note of coffee, but that whiskey note with the peat moss is the two, and the malt, of course. Beautiful, beautiful fragrance. It's a shame that they've ruined these because these were classics in the community. As you can see, it says Thierry Mugler down below. Not Mugler. I don't even know if they're making this anymore. But if they are, don't buy it. Hunt down a vintage. Even if you have to pay more, you will thank me. And then a fragrance that is newer to my collection, but I wore it once a month ago and I absolutely loved it. It is a fragrance called The Taste of Fragrance by Thierry Mugler, and there's the notes on the back. It's a spicy fragrance with vanilla and coffee. It keeps that Amen DNA, but it adds this spiciness from chili pepper. Amazing. I thoroughly love this fragrance. This is I think I paid $150 or $130 or something like that for 100 ml. I see them as high as $200, $300, $400 now. This is not that long ago. I should have bought two because you know how it is, but this is backup bottle worthy. Fantastic. I'm just glad to have all these Amens in Thierry Mugler form. And then the last one is a decanter that I have, and this is B Men. So I showed you A Men. This is B Men, and this is a 10 ml decant that I got, and it is a soft, spicy fragrance with anise. This is probably the farthest away from the Amen DNA that I've really smelled. It came out in 2004. And it was a joint effort between Jacques Huclier, again, with Christine Nagel, who is now the in-house perfumer at Hermes, or Hermes, for you folks who are a little bit bougie. But I want to save you guys a little bit of money because instantly when I wear this, it reminds me of a fragrance that I already own in my collection, and that is Yoshi Yamamoto Homme from 1998, I believe, the late 90s, whatever the 90s one. This bottle is a bottle back when Yoshi Homme was owned by the house of Jean Patel, or I'm sorry, that is not correct. It is Jean Patou, Jean Patel. I turned him into an Indian. Jean Patou owned Yoshi Yamamoto, and then they got purchased by P&G. And so this fragrance came out in the late 90s. This came out in 2004, clearly inspired by. I would say they're even interchangeable for me. It doesn't matter. I could wear this. I could wear this. They smell almost the same. So just a little point on B Men. Go with whatever you get the good deal on, but be very careful because there's a reformulated version of this that is not the same fragrance that came out, I want to say, in 2008 or 11 or something. So make sure you get the version from the late 90s, early 2000s. And you can tell because there's usually a little piece that kind of clicks right here to stop it from spraying. It does not have the cap, the black cap on top. So if it has the black cap on top, it's not the right one. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to the house of Prada. And Prada makes some of the best soapy fragrances that you can find. And this is my favorite from the house of Prada. It's Prada Amber Pour Homme Intense. And this is a lovely soapy fragrance because it brings in some warm notes that I really like. The amber is definitely there. But there's this beautiful earthy smell, like I mentioned in Heritage, there's this, bottom of the forest floor type smell. And I think it's from the patchouli that they use in here. As far as clean fragrances that for a man, if you want something clean but also interesting, this came out in 2011. This is I can't believe this is 11 years old, but there is a note of leather. There's myrrh, patchouli, amber. Gorgeous, gorgeous fragrance that I think frag heads would like and also the average public would like. Okay, next we're going to do the other Prada fragrance in my collection. And again, I'm showing these off because Prada's under L'Oreal. And this is Prada L'Homme Intense. This is their take on Iris. This is their Dior Homme take. I obviously like Dior Homme better. But for a clean, you know, iris flavor, this is even more metrosexual, unisex to me. Rumor is this is discontinued. I don't know whether that's true or not, but if it is, it's a shame because, you know, these two were the better fragrances in Prada's line, in my opinion, these two darker bottles. This one being my favorite. But anyways, this is, if you like Iris, if you like Dior Homme, Dior Homme Intense, Dior Homme Parfum, check out Prada's version of it. It is very good for a designer. Okay, next house that L'Oreal purchased along its journey of swallowing up all these independent houses is Viktor&Rolf. And they're another house that really went downhill. I said Mugler went downhill. Let me show you what Viktor&Rolf used to put out in the old days before I show you some of their newer stuff. They used to put out stuff like this. This is Antidote. This is a Grail fragrance now, apparently. I think it deserves that status, actually, because it mixes freshness with warmness, with powderiness, with smokiness, with citrus, with balsamic notes. I mean, everything that you just pull up the Fragrantica profile and read, it does. It's an amazing fragrance. It came out in 2006. It actually won multiple awards. Fragrance of the Year, Niche Fragrance, Best Packaging, yada, yada, yada. It came out by two perfumers, Eleanor Massenet and Pierre Wargrin. Wargnine? I probably butchered that to holy hell. But either way, this is an amazing designer. To think that this is what they were putting out. Look at the presentation. It looks like there's wax dripping off of it. And then when you put the cap on, you know, it looks like the wax is dripping off of the seal. Just an amazing presentation. It has a beautiful violet note, by the way. Roger Dove, eat your heart out in this one. Because the violet note in this, it actually smells like a Roger Dove. Now that I said that, you could trick someone into thinking this is a Roger Dove, for sure. 100%. No questions about it. If they didn't know this was Viktor&Rolf and you put this in a $1,000 bottle, called it Manhattan, and bedazzled it up, you could sell this for $1,000 easily, easily. And it is a complex fragrance. Listen to the notes: Guatemalan cardamom in the top, mint, bergamot, grapefruit, mandarin orange, all top. Mid, lavender, cinnamon, nutmeg, jasmine, orange blossom, violet, African geranium, and freesia. Base, incense, vanilla, sandalwood, amber, patchouli, leather, iris, gaiac wood, white musk, tonka bean, cedar, and oak moss. So this is what the house of Viktor&Rolf used to do. Now they do flankers of Spicebomb, you know, a million times over. The only Spicebomb fragrance that I like is Spicebomb Extreme. This is the best version, hands down, no questions asked, even with this stupid little thing that probably costs an extra $10 for you to buy. It's also a fresh tobacco, but it does have that sweetness, but it's toned down compared to the original Spicebomb. So for a frag head, this is probably the only one you would want to even mess with. But even the prices on some of these are going insane. So anyways, this is 100 and whatever it is, 190 ml. They don't even give you 100 ml. Anyways, the influence from L'Oreal strikes again. Okay, next. Next is a house called Valentino. And I'm going to show you a discontinued fragrance from back in the day, and then I'm going to show you their probably most popular men's fragrance that I actually happen to like. The first one is called Very Valentino, and this came out in 1999. It's also a bit of a holy grail. This is a 50 ml from when Unilever was the distributor. And this is a soft, spicy fragrance in the same vein as Opium Pour Homme, let's say. I get remnants of Opium Pour Homme, even though if you look in Fragrantica, I don't think they're compared to each other. This is also compared to Dolce & Gabbana by Man, which is a $400, $500, $600 fragrance if you go try to buy it on eBay, because it's very rare now, apparently. So it has this, you know, this fougere feel because of the lavender, and the lavender is very prominent. But there's a note of tobacco, there's a beautiful sandalwood in here, there's resins, there's cedar. There is anise, just like in Opium pour Homme. I don't think it's as turned up maybe as an Opium pour Homme, but either way, I mean, it's a soft, spicy vibe. You could wear this, you could wear B Men, you could wear Yohji Yamamoto, you could wear, you know, Opium pour Homme, and I think they're all going to get you in the same vein. So to me, you know, don't pay crazy money for this. That's what I'm trying to say. Is it nice? Yes. Will you smell unique? Yes, probably. Will somebody fall over themselves, or will a frag head like me spray this and, you know, the pearly gates open up and my nose have an orgasm? No, absolutely not. You know, it's a designer. It's a very well done designer. It shows what they used to do in 1999 versus now, but still, it's tough to find nowadays. Don't pay crazy money. And then the Valentino that everyone knows, and that is Valentino Uomo Intense. The chocolatey, powdery iris fragrance that competes with Dior Homme. Apparently this is reformulated. L'Oreal strikes again. I don't know whether the reformulation is good. Apparently the way you tell is if you look at my bottle, this is an older presentation. It has this awesome cap here that just pops off like this, and boom, there's a sprayer. Very similar to the Spicebomb sprayer, just boom, there it is. And then the newer bottles, excuse me, have this spiked collar. So if you look right here, you'll notice this collar is flat. The new bottles have this spiked collar. You know, like it's into some freaky stuff. And I don't know whether it's reformulated or not. This is a great version though. If you like iris, this is a must, and I am an iris lover. This is a fun fragrance. I like this fragrance a lot. They did a great job with this. And of course, it should also be said, the perfumer of this apparently is Olivier Polch, the same perfumer that did Dior Homme. He just took his formula to Valentino, and wham bam, thank you ma'am. So I own both. I would highly recommend owning both if you're in the collection world. But here it is. That's the last Valentino to show you. And now on to the house of Paloma Picasso. I showed this in my women's fragrance list. It's called Paloma Picasso by Paloma Picasso, I think. And it came out in 1984. And I believe this is a 2007 bottle. This is a tester bottle. The notes are listed on the back. And, you know, this is a floral chiffre fragrance, a floral chiffre. And it's a little tough for me to wear it, you know, from time to time. I really have to be in the mood to wear this, but as a piece of art, as a piece of fragrance history, very happy to have it. And then the masculine offering from the house, which is called Minotaur. And this, you probably won't be able to see that because they put it so small you need a magnifying glass. But this is a Cosmere bottle. Take my word for it. I got the magnifying glass out one day and looked at it. I bought this off of Anuj from EnchantéPerfumes.com. The one and only, the famous Anuj. Look at this fancy schmancy sprayer from back in the day. And apparently this is like a fruity type fragrance for summer. So I haven't worn it yet, but I will give it a full wearing once it gets hot again, which it's January 3rd, so that's probably like tomorrow here in Texas. And then on to one of my favorite fragrances of all time. And this is Safari. They own the house of Ralph Lauren, by the way, in case you're not catching the theme here. This is Ralph Lauren Safari, and this is also a Cosmere bottle. And they really like their tiny bottles, or tiny stickers. Look at this beautiful presentation. Looks like a whiskey decanter. It's got wood grain on the cap. I bought a backup from Anuj. The one that I am currently using is a spray. The one that I got from him is a splash. And this is... I love this type of fragrance. I couldn't even tell you why, to be honest with you. This and Jazz and Heritage and all these fragrances from that time frame, the late 80s, early 90s, that are created this way, I just absolutely love. There's just something about it. I don't know if it's the greenness mixed with the oak moss or the leather in the bay. I don't know. But I love this fragrance. It smells to me like a man should smell. They should not smell like this, I'll tell you that. This is how a kid should smell. This is how a man should smell. I'm sure L'Oreal doesn't care which one you buy, but I will tell you, don't give your money to L'Oreal. Go hunt down a Cosmere bottle of Safari and thank me later. Okay, next Polo is going to be Polo Sport. One of the only real marine aquatic fragrances in my collection that I actually enjoy. And as you can see, metal cap, Cosmere bottle. If it has a blue, plastic cap, it's the newer formulation and it's shite. This is a very pleasant fragrance for the heat. It was created by Harry Fremont, again, just like very Valentino. And this came out in 1994. This was right at the forefront of that aquatic type wave. And it's got mint, lavender. It does have this seaweed note and ginger and cyclamen and Brazilian rosewood and this musk that just makes it so clean. For a clean fragrance, this is fun to wear. I mean, even as a frag head, most clean fragrances, you're like, eh. But this, awesome. Cosmere version, Polo Sport. Get it while you can before prices go nuts. And then you guys are in for a treat. I'm going to show you my 2 Polo Green bottles. I don't think you guys have seen these yet. Those who know me know I have these, but Polo Green is one of my favorite fragrances of all time. This is both without caps, by the way, because they're both testers. Again, you got to get what you can. This is the Cosmere version from Anuj, from Enchante. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it, but I'll try to show you anyways. There's the Cosmere version. And then I have a vintage Warner version, which Cosmere bought the rights to distribute Polo Green from Warner. And if you'll notice on the bottom, it doesn't say EDT. It says Cologne Spray. And you can see Warner Limited right there next to the blue number. So this is a very special bottle. You can also see the difference in the atomizers. This is the Cosmere, and that is the Warner. See how it has that green around it instead of the white from Cosmere. Anyways, one of my favorite fragrances of all time. So glad to have both of these. As long as you can get a Cosmere bottle, do it while you can. It's so worth it. This is one of the best masculine fragrances of all time. It was put out by Carlos Benaim, which 1978 he put this out. He's still putting out fragrances to this day, like the Dawn music for a while, and you could say this was his masterpiece. He put out Dunhill Icon, all great fragrances, but this, to me, again, what men should smell like. These are what men should smell like. Men should be walking around smelling like this, not like bubblegum. That's my, maybe I'll make that the name of my channel. Okay, next is the final Polo Ralph Lauren fragrance, and that is called Polo Crest. Again, another vintage hidden gem that people fall all over themselves to get because apparently it smells like Polo. And I will tell you, to me, I do not like this as much as Polo Green. This is harsher. It has caraway in both the top and the mid. So you get this heavy caraway blast mixed with the rosemary, the artemisia, the juniper, and then you got the floral touches in the mid with the pine, and then it goes straight into the leather. I'm glad to have this. I'm glad to own it. I am not very excited to wear it, to be honest with you, because I'd rather wear Polo Green. But as an artifact, Polo Crest. And again, it's a tester, so none of my polos have caps, the green versions. Okay, now onto the house of YSL, the final house that L'Oreal owns. And again, YSL used to be a house that competed with Chanel and Dior. That's just how it was. Some of their older fragrances, M7, Opium for Women, Koros, Jazz, just masterpieces. And you talk about a designer house that fell flat on its face. You'll notice I'm not going to show you YSL Y. I'm not going to show you, Lenoit Delhomme. It's not my thing. So I am going to show you some of the older fragrances, but this goes back to how YSL and how L'Oreal handles their brands. Do they give them autonomy to work, to operate? What is the issue where it seems like these L'Oreal brands like Mugler, for example, fall off the face of the earth once L'Oreal buys them? And so, that is part of the reason why I'm doing this, so you guys know what to buy and, who to give your money to. If you're going to buy a bottle, buy a vintage one. If there is a cheapie that you like that's worth buying, just go buy it, kind of thing, stuff like that. So the first one is M7. I've shown this bottle a couple times on my videos so far. This is a vintage. I also have the Oud Absolu version, which I didn't bother getting because it's all the way in the back, and I'd probably drop everything and break all my bottles trying to get it for you guys. But I love the 3-note breakdown on the 4-note breakdown on the back. Bergamot, Agarwood, which is Oud, Vetiver, Amber. That's it. That's all that they list. And this does have that cola vibe. I mentioned that in my Enigma video. This has that cola Dr. Pepper feel to me. I said Enigma smelled like wild cherry Pepsi. This smells like Dr. Pepper in the opening. And it's supposedly the first designer fragrance to use oud. Was it real oud? Who knows? Was it the new synthetic oud molecule that, Givaudan was trying to sell by the ton to these houses? Probably, but maybe there is real oud in this. I don't know. But my nose does detect a difference between this and the Oud Absolu. Maybe that is worth a comparison video in the future if you guys request it. But, again, this is very expensive stuff now because it's discontinued. You'll notice I do not have a cap, but I love wearing this in the cooler weather. But it's probably, versatile enough to wear anytime. And then another fragrance I like wearing in warm weather, it is YSL's Rive Gauche pour Homme, the ultimate dad fragrance, as it's known in the community. This also has a lavender, anise, soft, spicy feel to me. But it's it feels like an aromatic fougere because it is an aromatic fougere. This is the grandson of this. This is the grandfather. This is the grandson. They both do the same job to me. They're both fantastic fragrances. If you think about your dad shaving when you're a little kid, and you think about that smell of the shaving foam, with some rosemary and star anise, it is just, for a fragrance like this that I normally would not like, this is just perfection from when Tom Ford was creative director. Not my favorite. I'm glad that I have the tin can version, but I hear that even if you can find the reformulated version in the square bottle that they put all the men's fragrances in and then discontinued them all, get it. you know, because it's just as good if you want this fragrance. I prefer Azzaro Homme personally for this style from 1978, but this being a 2003 launch, this feels like it could be from the 70s or 80s, but very well done, you know. I'm talking just personal preference here. A lot of people probably prefer this over Azzaro Homme. So, you know, when you're talking about two of the greatest fougere fragrances of all time, how do you pick? You know, it's just personal preference at that point. It's like picking a favorite color. And speaking of older fragrances, this is a vintage bottle of YSL Pour Homme. And this is one of these citrusy, fresh, you know, very similar to Eau Sauvage from Dior, but this came out in 1971 instead of 1966. Raymond Chalian. Useless at these name pronunciations, but this is fresh lemon verbena, fresh lavender, beautiful musk. You know, if you like fresh fragrances like Eau Sauvage, by the way, if you like Eau Sauvage, I think this is a better version. I enjoy wearing this more than Eau Sauvage. And I think I enjoy wearing Roger's Scandal a little bit more, but not the Parfum Cologne. If you can find a vintage EDP, we were talking, me and Jonathan in the comments, if you can find a vintage EDP of the Scandal from Roger, he does a great job modernizing this fragrance. Okay, YSL's masterpiece next. If it wasn't for Old Koros, this would be my favorite YSL. This is Opium. And somebody in the comments told me that this is a bottle from when Tom Ford was creative director. This is probably a 22-year-old bottle. It's so good. It's just, it's everything that perfumery used to be. And I hear that if you can get the bottle with the built-in sprayer, it's even better, which I think my head would explode if I smelled a better version of this. I don't even think it's possible. I don't believe it. I'm going to go buy a bottle with the built-in sprayer just because I have to know. But that is Opium for women. And then they put out a flanker called Secret de Parfum. Well, I thought it was a flanker, actually, but I was corrected by Denby. Thank you, Denby. He said that actually YSL called their Eau de Parfum versions Secret de Parfum in the early 90s. So it's not a flanker. It's just the EDP with the notes kind of rejiggered. And the myrrh feels amped up here. I still don't know what red myrrh is. I want to know what red myrrh is, but if you like myrrh, which by the way, this fragrance I showed you as my scent of the day, Oriental Velours, is maybe the best myrrh fragrance I've ever smelled outside of the EDP of Opium. These two, if you like myrrh, there's a tip of the century for you for myrrh lovers. They are right there. This has a little more green touches to it. This has spruce in it. And this obviously doesn't. It goes more towards the resins. But God, I love them both. And I love the note of myrrh. So good. So good. If you can hunt one of these Secret de Parfum versions down, do so. I promise you, you will not be disappointed as a fragrance lover. And then the final Opium flanker that I have is Opium Pour Homme. And this was done by Jacques Cavalier, the current in-house perfumer of, oh man, somebody help me out here. What is he the current in-house perfumer of? You know, sometimes my brain just goes on a short circuit here. If I knew how to pause the video and keep talking, I would totally do it for you guys. Louis Vuitton, in-house perfumer of Louis Vuitton. And so he built this in the late 90s, I believe. And this is another soft, spicy fragrance. This came out in 1995, I'm sorry, mid-90s. It seems a little soft to me, though. I wish I had the EDP. This is the EDT. And to be honest, I totally rock this in hot weather because it has this star anise note. And it does have some balsams in there, but they're very intelligently done. They never feel heavy or overdone, or, you know, they never feel like they're too much to wear, even in the heat. Maybe the older versions are different. I hear this is discontinued now, but still very happy to have this, even though it's just a 50 ml. And then one of my favorite fragrances of all time, and that is YSL Jazz. This is the bottle, by the way, not the box. The sprayer is built in. Thank God for built-in sprayers from the 1980s. This is a 50 ml, and this is my backup 100 ml bottle, my little Jazz siblings. And, you know, this and Safari are definitely kindred spirits. I love them both. I couldn't even pick. It would be like picking a favorite child. This was done by Jean-Francois Lati. And this has all the great masculine notes in it that you would want. Lavender, nutmeg, coriander, artemisia, anise, basil, bergamot, cinnamon, cardamom. Then it adds this iris twist in the mid. So it adds a little bit of softness, which I love. To these heavy notes like tobacco, oak moss, leather, sandalwood in the base. Just, this is what men should smell like. Honestly, I mean, that's the only way I can put it. Heritage from Guerlain, Safari from Ralph Lauren, Jazz by YSL. This should be an everyday, daily driver for a man. And then they have some flankers. And the first one is a fragrance called Jazz Prestige. Apparently, smelling like a man was out of style in the 1990s, because in 1993, 5-6 years later after the original came out, they released this, which is more of a floral, rounded take on it with some fruity notes. Still very well done. I prefer the original. And then Pierre Bourdon did a flanker of Jazz called Live Jazz. As you can see right there on the back, Live Jazz, and it still has that keyboard, you know, feel for your fingers with the bottle, just like the original. And Live Jazz is a fresh take on it because it came out in the late 90s. Pierre Bourdon's the master of freshness with Green Irish Tweed, and then Cool Water, and my brain just can't think of words today. But this is considered an aromatic fougere, but my God, is it a million miles away from this, you know. This is much more fresh, minty. There's grapefruit. There is a base of amber, you know, a little bit of warmth to keep it interesting, but it's that coriander, and then he uses a note of rhubarb, which I love. I think the note of rhubarb should be used more in fresh perfumery. Guerlain Homme Intense uses a fantastic note of rhubarb with that mojito accord. These are kind of in the same, you know, ballpark, if you will. But now that Pierre Bourdon is kind of like a legend after the book, The Ghost Perfumer, I'm sure that these used to be cheapies. Now they're $200-300 a bottle. And then we go on to another Annick Menardo release. I mentioned her when we talked about Visit from Azzaro, and she comes back around at the end of the L'Oreal video with Body Koros. And this is a vintage, you can tell by the little plastic piece on the bottom. They did away with this because it would just sit there awkwardly and fall. This uses a note that is very rarely used in perfumery. This came out in 2000, so 21 years ago. And she used the note of eucalyptus and mixed it with the cedar and benzoin and warmth, you know, that warm feeling that you get. But the eucalyptus and incense, I should have brought this out in my incense video. I'm noticing all kind of things I'm doing wrong. But eucalyptus was also used in Creed's Royal Mayfair, which I love. I did not love it at first. I actually hated it at first, and I completely made a U-turn on Royal Mayfair, or Windsor if you can find the vintage. Same fragrance. But Body Koros, very glad to have this in my collection. And then the King Koros. These are 250 mLs with the silver shoulders. And then my pride and joy is the 100 ml Parfums Corp version, which I am going to try to buy less fragrances in 2022. I obviously don't need a million fragrances. However, if I would come across a Charles of the Ritz version of this, me and Rich Mitch are just going to have to duke it out for it because I don't have one. And that is on my wish list big time. But outside of that, I mean, what do you say about the greatest fragrance, one of the greatest masculine fragrances of all time? Again, Pierre Bourdon, his first fragrance, I believe, officially that put him on the map. And this just feels like, you know, it's very animalic. And this was a designer. That's what kills me. YSL put this out as a designer house in 1981. And this just, oh, that honey and civet, and oh, it's just so, this is what a man should smell like. Again, it's a little bit shocking. It's a little bit harsh, but it just touches deep into your brain. It just hits you somewhere that is ancient. You know, it touches a part of your brain that's ancient. That's the way that this feels to me. Very primal. And, you know, how do you not call something like this art? How do you not call something that makes you feel like that art? So, of course, what does L'Oreal do? They remove it from the US website. And you can still buy it, but I think you have to go to Paris or some, you know, ridiculous thing. And so don't buy the version without the silver shoulders if you want the easiest way to do it. I mentioned Charles of the Ritz. That's the oldest version. And then there's Parfums Corp. And then there's, you know, all these other Sanofi and, you know, whatever. The simplest way to do this, if you're going to buy Kouros or hunt down vintage Kouros, is to look for the silver shoulders. If it has silver shoulders, you're good. The newer bottles have white shoulders. There is no silver here. There's other identifiers, obviously. You can see this bottle is straight on the bottom, and this bottle is punched in on the bottom. And, you know, there's different identifiers and all this stuff, but to be quite frank, just find a version with silver shoulders. Even if you hate the fragrance right now, even if you're a newbie, and you smell this and it smells like a urinal. Even if you can't understand why a man would wear this, get it while you can before the prices go insane. They're already starting to go insane. I'm so glad I have 200 mLs worth of juice. And, you know, get the fragrance if you're a newbie and put it away and come back to it a year or two later or 3 later. You will thank me because this is one of the greatest masculine fragrances of all time. I think L'Oreal is making a huge mistake getting rid of this or not marketing this. I don't care about sales. You know, imagine if Guerlain said, we're not going to do Mitsuko anymore. You know, or we're not going to do Shalimar anymore because it's not selling. That's what L'Oreal is doing to these brands. It is an absolute travesty. That's why I wanted to do these videos. It takes time. It takes time for me to pull all these out of my collection. I hope you enjoy listening to me talk about fragrances for an hour. Again, the YouTube algorithm doesn't like it. I don't care. This is for the connoisseurs, the people who love fragrances like I do. So this is the L'Oreal family portrait, if you will. We kept it under an hour. I tried to be as brief as possible. Thank you again for spending time with me. And someone keeps telling me I should say, make sure you like and subscribe. And, you know, I just assume that that's going to happen if I keep putting out content that you guys want to hear. So, again, any recommendations for future videos, I will always try to listen to and accommodate. The incense fragrance video was a recommendation. So drop the comments below. I love hearing what you guys have to say. Don't worry about showing me up. You know, I love the geeky perfume talk. So, you know, comment below. I love seeing your faces. Ciao, and we'll catch you next time.